the years, I have 3D printed and shown off a lot of different cool prints, but by far, some of my favorite projects that I printed come from 3D printing world, and they're collapsing swords. These are seriously some of the most satisfying 3D prints that are out there, not just because of how amazing they look, but because of the sound that they make when you actually retract them, as well as when you collapse them back down. And one of the original ones that I printed was this Star Wars inspired lightsaber. And again, these are just so much fun to play around with. But what makes these so much fun to not only play with, but to also 3D print is exactly how they're designed and how many options there are available for you to actually print with these. Almost all of the designs that they've created and shared can be printed without supports depending on your 3D printer and how comfortable you are with printing them. And they also have multiple different options for how you might want to print these, including some that are just singular print in place objects like this katana here, or ones that can be printed in multiple different parts and then assembled afterwards like this mace. And what's important is how you decide to print the blades for your object. The first option is to change the infill pattern to concentric. This is really good for a little bit more strength with your prints, and it'll allow you to print these all at the same time, which will save you time in the long run. They even have a test print that you can quickly test out your settings before printing the full set of blades to make sure that everything separates correctly. The second option requires you to print each blade separately using vase mode. This means that the blades are going to be a little less strong, but they're going to extend a lot easier. And another tip that they recommend for printing any of these blade options is to go into your line width settings and change it to 0.43 when using a 0.4 nozzle. I should also mention over on their website, they have a full breakdown of all of the different settings that you can potentially try out and what they recommend. I actually prefer printing these all at one time and not in vase mode. I just prefer a little bit more rigidity when it comes to the actual blades because I tend to break things. Then once you've got all your settings figured out, you can get everything printed. And this is where I want to say a big thank you to today's video sponsor, which is Elegoo, the makers of the Elegoo Centauri Carbon. This is a fast and affordable Core XY 3D printer. This printer did a fantastic job printing a wide variety of these swords that I'm showing off in today's video. Elegoo also has some deals going on right now for Amazon Prime Day, everything from filament to resin to 3D printers. Make sure to check out the links down below for more information about any of Elegoo's products. Now again, depending on what you've printed, it might just be as simple as taking the print off of the build plate and start fidgeting around with your new toy. But some of the designs you're gonna have to print in multiple parts and then assemble them and then screw on typically a cap that secures the blade in place. And one of my favorite recent ones that I just printed is this Morning Star mace here that is just so wildly different. It's not a blade, you're actually printing the expandable handle here. And again, just really fun to play around with. They also have a smooth spiked option here. I printed these in multiple different colors just to add a little variation to it. But again, it's just a really fun print in place project. Some of these other designs like this katana here can all be printed in multiple parts, allowing you to print them in different color combinations. So you can actually mix and match things versus having to just print one individual color for your prints. Then everything can more or less slide together if you put them in the correct print combination here. So here I can slide this and this like this, and then the cap should snap on here. And now I have a katana. It's so friggin' cool. These are just some of the wildest designs. And what's awesome about it is, again, there's just so many different variations of different types of weapons and retractable prints that are out there for you to print with. And the whole reason why I'm making this video is because 3D Printing World reached out to me specifically because he has a new huge sword and knows that, oh my gosh. Oh, that I'm a massive fan of his huge retractable swords. This is like the broadsword from Braveheart. This is one that I printed, I think 2 years ago now on one of the Elegoo 3D printers, but he's got a Buster sword, which is just a really wide sword that you see Cloud from Final Fantasy using. And this is a fairly large sword that I was just barely able to fit all of the different parts directly in the build volume of the Centauri Carbon. And I initially tried printing all of the blades at one time and it failed horrifically. Yeah, I ended up taking those and ended up printing them individually there on the bed. I still ended up going with the concentric infill pattern for each of these blades, but for the tip of the blade, it is much longer and it's not gonna fit vertically in the build volume of the 3D printer, so I had to turn it at an angle on its side and get that printed. And for the guard, I ended up using supports for this print, and in hindsight, I really did not need to use supports for this. I could have printed this all without supports. Also, to give it a little bit more rigidity in the handle, I printed the handle, I think at 50% infill with a gyroid infill pattern, so it's a good bit heavier and chunkier, and I'm not worried about this splitting or breaking when I'm swinging the sword around. The other thing is that this sword is designed with a hole through the center to add some extra support for the handle and everything once it's assembled, but that's gonna require you to get some kind of metal bar or dowel. So I went over to Lowe's to see what I could find, and I ended up finding this 1/4 inch dowel metal rod that was, I think, 12 inches long, and I was able to find one that actually fit easily into the opening there. So I was able to just thread that through and then sort of slide it through the opening. If you can't find that, there's also a wooden dowel that you can find over at like Walmart that I was able to find. That again, some of these were slightly thinner than other ones, and that 1/4 inch worked just perfect. And they recommend using a 10-inch rod, and mine was 12 inches, so I marked off 2 inches and then took a cutoff tool and then chopped off the 2 inches. But now, as I'm getting this ready to assemble, I realized you don't really need to cut it off if you pick up one of these 12-inch ones, because it's just gonna be wide open and the metal rod is gonna be going directly into the blade where it's hollow. I could then work on getting this all assembled. You're just gonna screw the metal rod into the handle. There's then another plastic printed part that we can screw on top of the handle. Then we should be able to insert everything together. I'm noticing this is spinning with the metal rod in there, and I don't want the blade spinning. So what I think I'm gonna try to do is use some 3D gloop on the 3D printed parts, and hopefully that'll help weld everything in place. All right, I need to make sure to install the blades, and then I can install this piece in here. Oh yeah, there we go. Just like that. And then this should hopefully all screw together and then hold it all in place. Oh my gosh, this is so friggin' cool how they've managed to design this and hold everything together. And then we just need to gloop the little gems in place there. This looks so cool. It has definitely got some heft to it. This weighs about 2 pounds. If I'm guessing, this was probably somewhere around 1.5 rolls of filament to print everything that you're seeing here. And yeah, this, not even extended. I haven't even tested extending this yet. This measures 24 inches from the tip of the blade to the bottom of this handle. So it is a fairly large print. Just collapsed, fully collapsed. This is probably one of the largest fully collapsed swords that I have. All right, let's test this out. I'm a little nervous just because of how big this is. Oh, this is friggin' cool. And my handle just came loose. This didn't even fully extend all the way. Oh my goodness. This is a beast of a sword. I'm gonna have to take this outside. Like, it's even too big for me to record right here. Holy cow, so cool. All right, now that we're outside, let's test this out again. Yeah, the tip just went flying into my door. So definitely printing this on its side might have impacted how thick it was when it actually printed versus all of the other pieces. Thankfully, I can all slide that back together. Oh, okay, I can't pull that one too hard because it's gonna come flying out of there. Maybe I can put in a little 3D printed bump, but this is still pretty impressive with just how big this is. Just to give you a comparison, here is the full broadsword. That is just, oh my God. This thing is on another level of how huge this is. The broadsword still edges this one out by about 1 foot in length, but it is just 2 awesome, incredible 3D printed swords that all retract and collapse in on each other. Regardless if you decide to print a katana or a lightsaber or one of those huge swords, definitely check out these files from 3D Printing World that I'll have linked to down below, and let me know what might be your favorite 3D printed sword option that you've printed that I haven't shown off here. I also want to say a big thank you to all my Patreon supporters for your continued support of me making goofy videos like this one here. If you're interested in my 3D printer settings that I use for my 3D printers, you can find those over my Patreon. But definitely check these out. This is just a wildly awesome, massive sword print that you can't find anywhere else. Thanks so much for watching, all. I'll see you next time. Bye now.